Hello. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, kindly be seated.
Check,
I like
check.
Captain Kamal Chadda. He's bringing the sweets inside. That's the way, sir. At least we are on time.
Yeah, I think this is okay.
Hello, hello, hello.
Okay, sirs, I think we should start. We move on to our session three. Our session three, session chair and moderator is Captain Kapil Dev Bahl, fellow of CMMI. I would like to read a few lines about him. Captain Kapil Dev Bahl is a Dufferin alumnus of 1969-1971 batch. Okay, I hear the bell, so I will wait. Yes, Captain Abhay Zakaria, can we start? Okay. Captain Kapil Dev Bahl is a Dufferin alumnus of the 1969-1971 batch and a master mariner with 20 years of sailing experience, including 5 years in command of ships and 2 years in pilotage operation. Thereafter, he worked for 30 years as a nautical cargo and warranty surveyor for P&I and H&M industry, specializing in OSIMF, SIRE, accredited oil major vetting inspections, maritime emergency response, risk assessment and claims, including salvage, wreck removal. He has a postgraduate degree in law and is a maritime arbitrator. He has passed the association examination of Chartered Institute of Transport, London, the Institute of Chartered Shipbrokers, London, and Narottam Marorji Institute of Shipping, Mumbai. After a course alteration from nautical to social science, he obtained a postgraduate diploma in comparative methodology, Mumbai University, a UGC diploma in conservation of material culture, Hera St. Xavier College, a diploma in ancient Indian culture, Asiatic Society, Mumbai, a diploma in interreligious traditions, Department of Interreligious Studies, St. Xavier's College, Indian Heritage at Bhandarkar Oriental Research Institute, and History of Art at St. Xavier's College. The list is very long, sir, but I am only naming very few. He is a fellow of the CMMI, vice chairman of the governing council of the Narottam Marorji Institute of Shipping, president of DRASIA, president of the Maritime Mumbai Museum Society, chairman of the Nautical Institute India West branch, and is on the advisory board of Center of Excellence in Maritime Studies, University of Mumbai. He presently serves on the board of directors of ICCIR, committed to reversing the adverse effects of climate change and carbon capture by means of seaweed cultivation. I had a chance of interacting with him over a dinner some days back, and the way he explained how the seaweed industry is developing within India and making awareness across the world. On a personal note, he is a mentor to me and my family. He has helped my daughter for her sailing lessons and the horse riding lessons. He himself is an avid sailing boat and a horse rider. Captain Kapil Dev Bahl, sir, it's an honor for us for you to be here with us as a session chair and the moderator. I hand over to you, sir.
Thank you, Captain Basil. Thank you for the kind words. Good afternoon, everybody. we are conscious that we're 15 minutes behind schedule, but I'm pleased to say that we are dispensing with a very formal, structured presentation from each speaker. Instead, the three of us decided day before yesterday that we will have an informal chat, a fireside chat, as Captain Hari says, and it will be interactive. The audience are encouraged to participate. Since there is no structured PPT, feel free to raise your hands and ask a question after the person has addressed the earlier one, or even comment on something. And in fact, I'll be encouraging you to comment on a few things. I have with me two very, very eminent speakers, and both of whom I've known, Captain Hari Subramanian especially, for decades. I'd like to begin by introducing each of them. So Mr. Srinivas, he's been senior principal surveyor with IRS. I think you've been there for 14 years. And he specializes in control and automation systems, systems integration, and maritime cyber risk. He has 13 years experience in shipbuilding, 12 years experience in ship design, and various consultancy projects in shipyard and ports in automation. Mr. Srinivas, welcome, sir. We look forward to talking to you and getting enriched by your experience. I think Captain Hari Subramanian doesn't require a formal introduction, and it's a long one, so I'm going to give you bullet points, what will be interest to you. He's been 17 years at sea, and the remarkable thing, he served on main fleet as well as offshore fleet, so we'll have a good insight into both. For the last, since 2009, so he's been working with the Shipowners P&I in Singapore, where he headed the loss prevention department till 2019, and the global inspection program. He specializes in training, audits, as well as risk management strategies. The Shipowners Club, you all know, it requires, again, no introduction. It covers in excess of about 20% of the ships covered worldwide. And it specializes also in very niche specialist vessels. So obviously, Captain Hari has a lot of experience there. I'm very happy to say that Singapore MPA, he's been nominated in the Harbourcraft Safety Working Group, and also has received the Outstanding Individual Contribution to Safety at Sea by MPA Singapore. I think one of the few Indians who have been so honored, so congratulations, sir. He has an MBA degree in Human Resources, a Diploma in Maritime Law. He's a Fellow of the Nautical Institute UK, as well as of the CMI, and a Court Warden as well. So welcome, Captain Hari. As I was saying, we decided among ourselves that we're going to have it, a very informal chat. So what I've done the last 2 days is looked at their CVs and drawn up points that we can discuss. If you feel that these are okay, please do address these questions. Otherwise, feel free to raise whatever you think is appropriate. And after every couple of discussion points, I will go back to the audience to see and seek comments. To me, this day, this seminar, has been truly a very humbling experience. I recall Captain Kishore, I think he's somewhere around, he began the morning session with his experience, talking about closer. He talked about his experience with radars, and that actually helped me recap my own journey from, Scindia's till today. And when he talked of radar, I wanted to add to that point that it is not just the captain who had the privilege. At my time, I remember even captains were very awry. They even didn't have the privilege of using it all the time. And I remember early 71, at one stage, I got a message saying the captain wants you on the bridge. And I was so honored and so happy that I'll be able to see the radar finally. And when I read the radar, I realized what he wanted me was for the radar was getting hot, so he wanted somebody to fan the radar. So effectively, the radar only worked for an hour, and then you had to have somebody to fan it every few minutes and then stop it. So it's a long journey, and made a little more difficult for me to comprehend the proceedings today because of my involvement in other things other than maritime. So as Captain Basine promised, last 4-5 years has been engaged with carbon capture, growing seaweeds all across the country. As an NGO, it's a CSR activity. I'd like to ask Captain Hari and Mr. Ras each to have an opening remark, if you like. I mean, how you'd like to begin. So may I ask Captain Mr. Hari, Mr. Srinivas, please, can you begin your thought of the session today with some opening remarks?
Thank you, sir. I think the morning sessions were quite informative. That audience are well aware now what is mass, what is autonomous, how we are progressed from the simple manned ships to the advanced ships. So those things have really set the pace for this meeting now, right now. Otherwise, we would have started with normal presentations. What is autonomy class 1, 2, 3, 4? That is, we are rid of those kind of things now. But one thing we need to understand is, as the autonomy increases, the level of autonomy, that is, we call it, of course, level 1, 2, 3, 4, basically they were used for the initial scoping exercise. When the mass was initially formed, IMO did the scoping exercise. That is, basically they wanted to see how these present ships, advanced ships, will fit into the existing instruments. SOLAS, MARPOL, all those things. So they defined 4 categories of ships, level 1, 2, 3, 4. As you know, people have explained what is 1, 2, 3, 4, that is well aware of. But in the recently concluded MSc, what they have said is, they will not be using this 1, 2, 4 any longer, but they may come up with the different levels or maybe same levels. But right now they are concentrating on the technology part, whether it is autonomously controlled, automatic, or remotely. Because as morning, one of the speakers said, in all the 4 levels may exist in one single voyage. So we are talking about a ship which has got people on board, people remote, and you have systems which can be automated, controlled, remotely controlled. So this is what the combination is. In fact, recent one more point has come up to say, they call it crewed and uncrewed. The new term, crew without crew, uncrewed. Whereas unmanned is with no persons on board. So an uncrewed ship can have people on board, maybe passengers, but no people, no crew on board. The new terminology which has been just surfacing in the MO recently. So with these things in mind, the remote control centers, where all these equipments, all the systems are going to manned remotely, will play a very important part. How they are designed, how they are operated, the qualification, competency, everything comes into picture.
Absolutely, very true. So when you mentioned uncrewed, that is subject to the passengers feeling comfortable by going on a ship without a crew or a captain. You know? So
right now may not be.
because I know aircraft can fly on their own, fly by wire, but I think the captain is there because of the comfort of the passengers as well. So, Captain Hari, so tell me, taking up what Mr. Srinivas said, so Mars is not really very futuristic in the sense that your PNI club has already entered some of these vessels. So tell us more of your experience on those.
So yes, I mean, we've seen a lot of discussion in the industry, and a lot of these people, I distinctly hear not in this lifetime, not in my lifetime. And that gets me thinking that probably you've not seen beyond your horizon. On a shorter note, my hearing's not too good. I thought you said uncouth. I thought you overheard one of my lewd jokes at lunchtime. So, but no, it is there. We are insuring over 100 ships.
Okay.
Like you said, the Shipowners Club actually specializes in the niche sector of smaller vessels, supply vessels. And at this moment, we are seeing it only in the domestic space. Because I think we're still catching up that the time where we reach those big ships going across oceans fully autonomous is something else of the future. That may be a little later in this lifetime. I'm going to be very cautious when I say that. But the domestic vessels, definitely. We've got unmanned vessels doing feeder runs. They are small vessels like garbage cleanup, river cleanup vessels. They are garbage vessels. They are actually freshwater supplying vessels of not such a high risk, because I think everyone's being very cautious and taking small steps.
And not ocean going.
And not ocean going. I think there's still lots to fall into place before we get there. But so I think it's very apt we are reaching this discussion here today. It's really, really very timely, because I think early next year there is an STCW meeting in the IMO. And I think all the delegations are now, the national delegations are preparing to put in their white papers as well. I'm involved with the Singapore segment as well on their working team. And I'm so glad that I can contribute here as well.
Excellent.
So,
Excellent. Um, Probably after the next round, I'm going to ask the audience to comment on what is in my mind. Um, just giving you a thought to dwell on for a couple of minutes. Nations such as India, which are in the crew management business of the shipping industry, probably such nations may not be so enthusiastic in terms of, what is up in the pipeline. But eventually we'll have to get there. And the thought that I want to put across to you all is that in terms of cost advantage of a ship without crew or minimal crew, how much does it translate into percentage of operating costs? So what will be the advantage of an owner who's deploying a ship and competing with, let's say, an owner who's got a full manning as against not? So just give it a thought, and we'll like to ask some of the audience who may be from the ship management and crewing departments. Mr. Srinivas, so I saw your CV about the offshore industry experience. From what I understand, of course, the offshore industry has a head start in terms of automation when I compare to the main fleet. So is that true? I mean, how far is that true?
No, it is quite true because, in fact, as you speak, we have unmanned small platforms are there, offshore platforms. There is a master platform, which is small unmanned platforms nearby. And you can control the SCADA systems from the mother platform, shut off the falls, keep the monitoring. Everything is there. Only the difference being in the offshore industry, the people who are manning them and all, the regular technicians were skilled to do the job. Because STCW doesn't work there. So they have a different set of people operating, core engineers operating and manning them.
By industry standards.
Industry standards. So they don't face the problem there.
Correct. Absolutely. You mentioned about the ships that were entered with you. So, Captain Hari, so considering that the human element would be certainly reduced in such circumstances, what in your view would mean that would such digitization involve lesser claims on the club, considering that the human element is reduced?
so this answer is actually a yes and no answer.
Okay.
Because going on statistics, what we've seen is year on year, we are seeing nearly 20% of the club's claims are crew claims. I'm saying crew claims, and those are going to be illness and injury claims. We are going to see definitely a kind of, and that is close to about $20 million each year. And we're going to see some reduction in that. But again, human element, I think everyone, like they're saying 80% claims used to be human element. That's because 100% human element is there. I mean, wherever you go, there is a human element. And as much as people like to put that in an error context, from a club point of view, we've been in causation for so many years. 14 years with the club, I've been looking at claims and all that. One thing I've realized, and what people don't like to highlight, do you know the number of incidents are prevented because you've got seafarers on board? You know, we're only seeing 80% of that which goes bad and it's quantified. But if you want to see, you'll have probably much more than that if the seafarers weren't there and carrying out their jobs. That's, I think, a point the industry fails to recognize. And sometimes we get so caught up in all these statistics, we fail to sit back and think that, if this guy wasn't there, the figures would have been much worse. So, yes, we still have, even if it becomes lesser seafarers on board, the P&I cover then still goes for increase in collisions, pollutions, and I think that there could be an increase in that because of a non-human element on board. As much as we like to kind of vindicate the human element, I think machines also can this thing, because what happens is they are programmed, they are monitored by Indians. So there is always some sort of, I wouldn't call it a human element, an interface where they can be kind of programmed not in the right way.
Correctly. Very true. So effectively, the human element thing has been a rubber stamp thing that is going around for quite some time. And if you distinguish between the proximate cause of a claim, which could be machine related or software related, and a root cause that invariably lands up to the human lap, so one has to distinguish between that as well. coming back to what I had raised, is there somebody here who would like to comment on that? What is the likelihood of reduction in management costs for an owner who's competing against a fully manned vessel? What percentage are we talking about? Any comments from professionals here? You can rise up and you can please stand up and mic them. The crew cost. Okay. So this 58 includes all the insurance for the crew, all the crew,
Complete.
everything.
Crew manning cost, which include also, but then if you see today, the insurance cost is low. What Hari is talking about increase, which is now nominal compared to what we are talking about if it is autonomous ship.
So are you suggesting that the difference between an owner or a managing company who is actually operating with minimal crew or no crew, that advantage is almost 58%? So there's obviously no competition. Sorry, Kamal? Okay. Right.
58% is the crewing cost. That's what he's saying.
Okay.
Morning, if you remember-
He's not comparing a vessel crewed and a vessel not crewed. No.
So if I recollect in the morning presentation, one presentation, I think 21% was something was shown.
Yes.
As per ton per kilo nautical mile, something like that.
Done mine. Okay.
21%.
I think you want to comment? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think 58% was very conservative.
Okay.
Today's times, 60 to 70%, anything less than 60% not possible. Around 70% would be more like it, again depending on type of the vessel. And now we are talking about the autonomous ships. It will not happen overnight, it will be a more of a hybrid mode where some crew will be taken off and some
Yes.
crew will be left. That is going to pose a new challenge because normally when that happens, it is the lower ranks which get a hit.
It's a?
It's the lower ranks
Yes.
which are normally taken off. And what will happen then? You are stagnating the supply line. The talent pipeline is getting choked there. So 5 years, 10 years down the line, you will not get any master or chief engineers when you need them. Because this is not going to happen suddenly over 5 or 7 years. You will still need the senior ranks. But if you're going to take off or hit the lower ranks, then senior ranks, you will get depleted.
Correct. The pipeline will get choked.
Yes, and again there is in tanker something matrix is there. How are you going to meet the matrix then? So there are challenges on the way, yes. It's not so easy that you have a simple solution to it.
I think that's why we are here. Let's see what challenges we can. And you know, at the end of this, I think we need to present a paper, white paper as well. Captain Basiris told me that we need to get the deliberations recorded in some sort of formal manner in a white paper. And I've asked both the speakers to put those thoughts across. So Mr.
Excuse me?
Yeah, somebody else wants to comment?
This
Can you get a-
mining cost,
Sorry, who's it?
uh,
Yeah, Captain Dubey. Yes, sir.
the mining cost, what we are talking about is for the mining agents or the ship owners. That's how it will differ. Actually, what we should look at is from owner's point of view. After all, they are going to pay for all this, including all other expenses like fuel. So fuel cost is also going to be a major percentage of the expense. So in relation to that, the mining cost or the cost for the crew is a major portion. And that is what they're looking at to reduce. And if that is reduced, the way we are planning in the mass planning for the mosque, running, we will see that the most beneficiary will be the ship owners. Thank you, sir.
True. So that's exactly my fear. So that means nations which are primarily the crew management division sector, we will have to compete, whether we like it or not, into that sector because there will be owners who are going to go ahead with the semi-autonomous ships. True. Mr. Srinivas, so IMO is working on a mass code. And that's been going on, I think, for, what, a year and a half? Almost?
Couple of years.
Couple of years. So what's the current status?
So currently, after the scoping exercise, what was carried out initially, where they identified the gaps with respect to the 4 levels of autonomy and the existing instruments, that is SOLAS, MARPOL, all this. As everyone expected, level 1 was more or less fitting in all the areas, but 2, 3, 4, lot of work to be done, because we are talking about remote control, autonomy and all. Later on, they started the work on publishing a draft mass code. So that work has commenced. A working group has produced the first draft now, which was discussed recently in June-July meeting. That talked about the basic functional requirements, what is to be given. It talks about various factors, including search and rescue, electrical machinery, including the remote control centers. It talks about high-level functional requirements and goals. This is expected to be complete by 2005, 2205, and maybe 3 years later we'll be having a mandatory code.
Mandatory.
Mandatory code. That is by 8. 22, 8.
Oh, 28.
28. So by 25 we'll have this there's a draft code, and 28 we'll be having the mandatory code.
Very sobering. So, Captain Hari, coming back to this field of P&I, what are the major legal challenges that we face now in liability insurance, considering criminalization of seafarers, and the fact that this entire liability insurance sector will have to develop with the new regime, right?
I think this is the fulcrum. This is where the problem exists at the moment. This is where it's all hinged on that. I think a lot of legal instruments may not be relevant if we are going to be talking of, first of all, it comes down to the definition of seafarer. You know, is a seafarer right now is a person who's on board. Now, soon, I don't know if he's going to be called a seafarer, because if he's going to be ashore and controlling the vessel, I don't know how he'll fit seafarer, but basically then vessel controller or navigator, as somebody's coined the phrase. So then again, that comes down to a thing that is he going to be a seafarer? No. Is he going to be an employee? Then it's going to be a different thing, because most of our legal instruments, like you see, unclause. Unclause means if he's sitting in a country, in a room, handling a vessel, within 12 miles, then territorial waters, then criminal jurisdiction applies. So does this mean that that person is always going to be criminally liable for something he does?
Even if he's sitting somewhere else.
Yeah, even if so, you on the high seas and all, you have some kind of breathing space as seafarers and masters and all that, because of this thing, to be fair. But then again, what would apply? Would the flag state laws apply? Or would, no, criminal territorial laws are like supreme as well as, it's going to be a little bit of a thing. So that needs to be sorted out. I think one of the action points that will be there is, I think, a task force per country, because their local laws are also different. It's going to be very interesting that a scoping exercise has to be done in this case, on the legal field, to see what instruments apply, because a lot of them would be irrelevant and obsolete. Like even for your MLC convention, would it be now defining you need a carpeted room and you need soundproof rooms for a shore controller as per your bunks and toilets on board? It's really doesn't. Does he have to go through that kind of a medical to sit in a room and this thing? Does he even need legs? He could be a person on a wheelchair and he could be operating his ship controls from there. So a lot of things will keep changing. I think one of the things we'll have to kind of tide over is that needs to be done to find out what's relevant or not. And then there will have to be some sort of probably new rules proposed, at least even locally or in an international picture, to see how we can kind of solve this. Because like I think Captain Rangnekar said as well, there are going to be chances where you have hybrid. I mean, we've learned this word hybrid after COVID. So it could be a mix of different varieties controlled and have seafarers. So it's going to be a mixture of a lot of things to apply. And I think even in the insurance world, a main thing, what is actually stopping everything is we do not have clarity on what the legal implications are going to be. And once that is clear, then liability and apportionment of liability becomes clear. And then the amount of risk you have becomes clear. And then that would again domino effect onto insurance premiums, P&I as well as H&M, as well as crew, it will be this thing. But I think once that gets sorted, a lot more clarity could come into place.
So you're working on it. It's work in progress.
No, sir, not yet. Right now, they're still sorting out the technical part of it. So once the nuts and bolts come in, then we'll find out where to kind of get it. So
If it is any help to you, I can give you an example. While you're talking, I was thinking 1983, the system of beaching vessels at Pakistan, Alang and Bangladesh was being sorted out, in initial stages. And I remember I got an assignment and the person who was beaching, like myself, was ashore and you're guiding a master to, beach the vessel. So you're strictly not a pilot because you're not on board. Who is responsible? The master. But you're telling the master where to go because he can't see the beach plot 4-5 miles out. So yeah, there was no legal guidance, no P&I club guidance, it's just going on without any. But I'm glad this is taking a more structured, formal approach,
I think, sir, if the white paper is the way forward, I think one of the action points would be is to form a team to very quickly see and, gap local laws and this and, envisage the various possibilities. And I think that should involve the stakeholders. If it doesn't involve the stakeholders, the operators and the various people in the room in this industry, I think then it's a little pointless.
Mr. Raj, you want to say something?
No, I agree with you. And one of the, if I understand correctly, one of the factors which you consider is whether the ship is worthy or not, which naturally, normally you go through a classification certification. So in fact, all the class societies, including IRS, we are working on those guidelines. In fact, already we have got guidelines on autonomous remote control vessels, which talks about five levels of autonomy. And we are already started doing some work on the 3 projects in India itself. We're working on 3 projects. So we improve that guidelines, and once those guidelines, the rules are in place, and the mass code comes in, then I think you'll be more comfortable in giving insurance.
Right. Anybody has any comment to make or any questions before I continue? Yes.
So I am H.K. Mishra. I would like to ask a question to the panelists. That can you give me one example of any new area where you feel that the legal processes or legal difficulties have been sorted out first and technology came later?
No, because if it was not a possibility, I don't think they would sort out the legal, right? I mean, it has to see light first. And a lot of things, I think, over here have to go concurrently.
Yes. Allow me to say something more.
Yeah, please.
Let us say, I'll give you an example of India. We had Information Technology Act in 2000, 2002, maybe. It could be one of them. More than 20 years have passed. We are still grappling with the challenges, legal challenges of technology, because technology is changing very fast. And legal processes take time to come in. I mean, we are unnecessarily worrying too much about the legal processes. As the technology is falling in time, the legal changes will come in much faster than we can think of. Because our minds are also changing. We don't realize that we are changing, but we are also changing very fast. And that's what is my personal opinion.
Very true. The laws actually are based on what human practices are, so you're absolutely right. Yes. Mr. Srinivas, during the course of today and when you read magazines, CVAs, etc., we keep coming across these technical terms like automation and smart ship and digitization. So can you run us through some of these words that are being used in the code or in the IMO?
Okay. Now, basically, we all know automation. Like whenever it was a human intervention, the work is being done, it is automation. Now, we have got autonomy now. It is slightly advanced in the sense automation does work by itself without any human intervention, but it doesn't take any decision because of changing environment. Whereas autonomous ship or autonomy, whether what we call technology, has the capability to analyze a couple of decisions and give a decision support or take a decision. In fact, if you, recently, a couple of words have come up in the IMO recently. They talk about automatic, autonomy. For example, they given an example of autopilot in the definitions of IMO. What they say, IMO, for example, the autopilot, you set a course. It goes by the course. but it is not autonomous. It is taking a course by itself and going. It is correcting the rudder and all, even if there is a small deviation. But it is not autonomous. Why?
Human has set the...
Human has set, and in case there is a huge deviation or you want to totally take a different course because of a changing environment there, he has to reprogram and reset it. If the same system, you add some couple of sensors, some situational awareness, it sees an object in front of it, then takes a decision to alter the course, then it becomes autonomy. That's how the shift is.
Correct. So taking away from what Captain Mishra just now mentioned, and also what you earlier alluded to, the vessels that have been covered by your club. So are the P&I policies, obviously they're different, but they're tailor-made for these. So there is obviously an example of a law or a procedure preceding the actual, you have worked on this policy prior to the vessel coming in. Yeah.
Yeah, so usually P&I follows statutory law, but in the absence of certain statutory law and to make sure that there are no gaps in the market, especially with this. So what in 2011, the club came out with its own plain language policy. So plain language policies means a little more elbow room as such, just so that it makes, and these things keep innovating. So in the sense is, it's still standard P&I covers there, collision, pollution, property, fines, crew, FFO, all this is still covered, but only thing it's not in these rigid clauses with warranties and all that. It's kept a little more, I mean, legal is anyway ambiguous. It's kept more ambiguous for the flexibility of it. But the same thing is, it's based on a couple of principles where, you know, compliance with voluntary codes, if any, not mandatory as we'd like to see it. Operational range and the contracts they are entered with to see the exposure. Levels of autonomy, like he said, in operation. Experience of the company, which in many cases may be less because it's a new technology. So that's one of the lesser points. And standards that the vessel has been built to, and you know where it's been built, these kind of things, and the risk management, and of course the cyber security measures, because I think later we'll be talking about cyber security, which is so crucial. So it's there, but it evolves as the risk changes. In risk, I mean the vessel and its ecosystem.
So very interesting. You know, you just now mentioned about these specialized policies. So my question is now, I'm just thinking aloud as I'm talking, this element of mutuality is lost when you are comparing, let me, a claim from an autonomous vessel obviously cannot be compared to. And there are not enough autonomous vessels to create a common insurance pool by itself. So how do you going to, how is another owner, let's say, subsidizing a claim from an autonomous vessel?
So it generally the autonomous vessels are specialist vessels, so they go into the fixed premium category.
Okay, okay.
So to
You
go
don't have
into
the
the pool,
mutuality,
yes,
okay.
to go into the pool there are certain set criteria.
Right, right.
Vessel size, etc. Vessel types are one of them.
Right,
so this usually are very small vessels at the
And they're
moment,
fixed
sir.
premium.
And so they go into the fixed premium.
Because obviously mutuality won't work unless there are a number of
Yes,
ships in
and
that.
plain language policies which are drafted by a club for catering to the business cannot be used at poolable levels.
Correct, I understand that. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Captain Hari mentioned about stakeholder engagement, where you have various stakeholders in the industry to be onboarded for this initiative. But what of the commercial side? What is the incentive for a charterer to put his goods on a fully autonomous ship vis-a-vis a legacy manned vessel, given there might be incidental initial higher cost of operations? This is alluding to respected sir's suggestion that there might be a transitory phase where, which I recently read as the autonomy paradox, that you might need higher manning on an autonomous ship because of the legacy transfer of knowledge and also monitoring. So where does commercial come in on this?
I think commercials are also industry stakeholders, because if there is no business, then the ships are futile or just floating objects. So I think when the engagement takes place, the commercial factor also should be taken into, because it's quite an important part of it, of the trade by itself. So stakeholders, I think even the commercial people should be involved, like in charterers or maybe in traders, so that that input is also given, because finally it should be a smooth turnaround. You're right in what you say that sometimes when something new starts, there's always lot. I mean, when ISM came around, how much of us were like kind of wetting our pants? ISM, that was like the, the big thing. And now when you talk of ISM, it's like, okay, like, next.
What next?
What next? Like, because when ISPS came, the amount of time I was chief mate when the ISPS code was first announced, and I said, why he had to go and fly that plane? Made so much more paperwork for us, And then here we are now, ISPS is passe now. Let's bring on new challenges. That's how, so I think with any policy when we start or anything, first is the mindset, like I asked Vaishak earlier, that mindset. And once we kind of get that mindset and everyone kind of is pulling in the same direction, things move much easier. And that's what, it's wishful thinking that all the stakeholders are involved when the government is making these changes or doing this kind of exercise. But definitely commercial is. Does that answer? No, because you've still got your mic with you.
Yeah, so do you see it as mostly legislation driven or policy driven? Because, commercial is very slow to adapt to change. We still are dealing with very old rules for chartering or bill of ladings, or even the digitalization of the bill of lading or the e-bill of lading has seen several roadblocks along the way. So where do you see, how do they come in on board? Because primarily this is what ships are for, moving cargo A to B.
What I see is finally when the legal and the legislation changes, there will be some factors which are going to then load, going to favor these type of vessels. Like there is a lot of now discounts and things given to green fuel vessels. That is the incentive. And this incentive then makes it more lucrative for the entire business, for the charterers as well. You may be able to get cheaper freight rates kind of thing, and maybe better in many ways. This is speculative thinking, but I think that when these are done, there is definitely going to be more emphasis on that, and there are going to be discounts given to the vessels, I would assume, to make this a more attractive profit, because finally that's the way forward. Soon you're going to have, as a commercial operator, you're going to have lesser and lesser of the old vessels to operate. Your choices are much more restricted. And then it's going to be probably more of a bane for you. Then, you may not have that selection of vessels, or you may not find things on the spot market. And then you will have no choice but embrace that. And if the principles, like you said, are very traditional and age-old, then probably they will have to have a rethink as well, so that, you all are also not at the bottom of the chain.
Sorry to hog the mic.
So
I had one more question.
He's still holding the mic, so it's okay.
Sorry. Yeah, this one relates to what Mr. Lars mentioned regarding global collaboration. So the environment in which autonomous ships are operating is visualized to be one which is non-conflict, involving international collaboration, whereas what we are seeing is more of the conflict and distrust sort of environment with geopolitical disruptions. So isn't that also a factor in how much of this is getting adopted?
I think without saying too much, I think Lars would agree with me in disagreement that if anything moves at IMO level with all the member states waiting to give, it's a long and arduous process. It's not as easy as we'd like to make it happen. But if you're going to do it domestically, where you will have lesser conflict, unless, so if each nation with autonomous vessels or that industry starts developing their infrastructure, their local rules as such, and that means when they reach the IMO, they would all come loaded with experience and expertise of what they've seen over here. Proper real life challenges rather than speculation, like what we're doing now. So they would come armed with real time facts, figures, and then when it comes down, it will be practical experiences and it will be much more measurable. So I think it's better we do it in small segments over here, because anyway, the smaller vessels are domestic vessels. So each, coastal state or flag state gets it in order. Sorry, not coastal, flag state gets it in order. And when they go to the IMO, then they would come armed with real-time problems, solutions, etc. And it will be a much more meaningful exercise. It could go faster, I hope.
Srinivas wants to say something.
And just, I agree with you. In fact, in India, as I said, there already we got 3 projects. One with L&T Defense, the small 4-meter boat, as a technology demonstration, they're doing it. It has come to the halfway through. And with 2 shipyards we're working.
IRS, this is IRS.
IRS with 2 shipyards. Again, with more than 12 meters vessel with autonomy level up to highest level. In our rules, we call it level 5, up to that level. So basically, the process is how to demonstrate technically that these vessels can be complying with to some rules. That's more important. Making a vessel, a remote control vessel is like a toy, you can make it. But complying with the rules is difficult, especially when we talk about software certifications, hardware certification. Because vessel reliability increases only when these equipments are properly developed, designed, and tested. So that's why they have come to us so that they demonstrate to the flag and to the IMO level that yes, our requirements are met. So we are working with the 3 projects that way.
Very true.
Sir, can I? Sorry.
Yes.
So, specifically to Captain Subramaniam, though I understand that the sample size right now is quite small, so it would seem to be very speculatory, but a lot of seniors out here have spent 6 decades. I'm relatively junior. 3 decades we've been hearing, that I have been hearing, that human error forms 80% of the causal factor of accidents. Now, that figure, where it's arrived from, has it gone through, but generally it's that 80 plus minus 2, depending on your source. Now, considering that in a utopic world, the autonomy would remove the human element and therefore, by logic, remove the human error, or at least reduce it. So, on the maritime insurance perspective, do you see the maritime insurance industry reducing premiums? Because that will be an impetus to mass. So unless there's, all factors of commercial, you remove manpower, you reduce manpower, it's not just their insurance, it's the possibility of a vessel deviating because of a fractured ankle is reduced now. So a lot of factors, the risk factor is being reduced. So do you see the maritime industry, particularly the insurance industry, discussing reductions of premiums for this?
Before you answer that question, you say this is your opinion, not the ship owners. Because he's going to commend you to, say,
No,
next time you're going to come and say, please reduce my premium.
I can safely say this because we are insuring autonomous vessels, sir. So, however, the caveat is always there. The disclaimer, I think, was there before the seminar also. So, no, the premium for autonomous vessels, like I said, I can actually see them not as expensive as your normal vessels. So, each type of vessel based, how does insurance work? We have a risk. A risk is a vessel. Now, based on your crew, now suppose you have Malaysian or Indonesian crew, the cost of life is very cheap over there. Full death liability is about 10 or 15,000 US dollars. Armed by you put a European on board, and the cost of life over there, I mean, as per their national, this thing is much higher. You would pay a couple of hundreds and thousands of dollars for the compensation. That itself is a liability. So, I mean, each vessel is measured as per its different risk. Each risk has got its different factors. Autonomous vessel, definitely we have this thing that these injuries, about 20% of it is going to be lesser in the terms of claims. But also there is a possibility of, having pollution incidents that remains as per that. There is also a possibility of still having collision incidents, cyber incidents, because all that, supporting technology is not perfected. It's still work. I mean, Monty still got a lot of work to do. It's still all work in progress, but we recognize that this is not as probably at the moment as vicious as probably we would see the other things. So there is definitely cheaper premiums, and that also goes that because the vessels are very small right now. I'm sure and the insurance is per gross ton. So as you go higher on a bigger ships, there are going to be bigger risk. Wreck removals are going to be more expensive, so that's another factor we would take into. So a lot of things, as your vessel size grows, then automatically a lot of other things start applying, and claims can be more onerous and heavier. So that automatically will drive the premium up. So at the moment, I think we are flexing. We are kind of moving with the industry, and it's reasonable. It's not about just, increasing premiums at every opportunity, because it's a mutual insurer. It's a non-profit organization. As much as people think P&I clubs, money, you've got to be joking. I mean, we are all in a pool. We don't take, the money we save over here is not actually what increases our salary. It's not a profit margin at all.
So, other than vessel size, even the length of voyage. So when that increases, that will be huge. So Mr. Srinivasan, when we were talking on telephone a few days ago, you mentioned this, the remote control center for autonomous vessels. So how critical is that center? When we talked on telephone, you were trying to explain to me, the remote control center.
No. In fact, the success of these autonomous vessels, I would say, would depend on the how effectively, efficiently remote control centers are operating. Whether it is fully autonomous, partial, remote control, everything is controlled from remote control center. Right from the design of the control center, how it is designed, the ergonomics, the operator qualifications, the communication between remote control center and the main ship, and how the remote control center communicates with the other entities like VTMS, rescue coordinate centers. So it is becoming a it is a combination, let us say, extended bridge plus a VTMS center.
So you categorize VTMS also as a remote control center?
No, I'm saying it can be categorized
that's
like.
manually instructed.
Because why I said, remote control center basically is like extended bridge. Like a bridge put in remotely. But apart from that, we are also monitoring other ships in the region, and we are trying to coordinate with the rescue team also in case there is a catastrophe. So it is all the personnel there need to have those kind of qualifications. And when I said talk about the recent IMO work, they said human-centered design should be there with the remote control center, which they mean the control center design should be such, the system should be arranged in such a way which should help the operator, his background in operations. They don't expect the operator to suit himself to the systems. The system to be shooting the operator. There is when MSC regulation is there, they wanted the whole thing to be designed as per that. That's why, including the temperature control, the vibration, noise. So we are looking not only at the system comfort, that your operator comfort is also equally important because it increases the efficiency.
Correct. Somebody?
Yeah, one little question I have to ask. Mr. Srinivas, see, as I understand, whether it is autonomous 1, 2, 3, 4, it all works based on the feedback or feed taken and thereafter interpreted through a software, and then necessary message is conveyed to appropriate, engine or equipment. Now my question is, the hub of everything is based on the software. So has IMO considered, and software also, again, on which platform it is being made? Because software can be prepared on different platforms. So has there been any effort on the part of IMO with respect to which platform be used? What should be the requirement of a software? Because every now and then we are seeing the cyber security issues. So has there been any work on this issue?
Standardization.
It is still at the beginning level, I would say, because IMO, whatever they define now, is at the goal and functional requirements level. If you see a goal-based approach, the highest is the goal, next the functional requirements. The third and fourth level actually come down to the base working levels. So they have defined the functional requirements right now. But if I look at a classification perspective, definitely in the class we have a software standards. How a software has to be designed, but as you asked me, there is no platform constraint. Even for normal, let us say, integrated bid system is there, DP systems, there is no platform constraint. But how the software has been designed, what factors to be taken off, there are codes and standards for that. That has been verified by the class society regularly and certified.
So primarily you are saying it's based on the performance standards.
Performance standards coupled with the base standards with IEEE, ISO has got a standards, how a development of a software should take place, how should be tested. In fact, for a autonomous, what we call AI systems, artificial intelligence systems, it depends, work depends on the training data. Because all the systems get trained on the data. So there are substance standards, how to take a training data, how to have a testing with the development data, and what should be test data. So these things do happen at the certification program level. I don't think when tomorrow also IMO is going to come out with this kind of basic minimum requirements, how should be done. Maybe later on, like radar performance standard, they may come out. But
Or
even,
like
they are-
EGDIS.
even in radar like this also, they don't specify what software to be used. Only performance standards are given.
Correct.
That means
So
what you
Captain-
are trying, pardon me.
Yes.
That means the software is changing every now and then. All of us are aware on the Apple phone, every now and then you get new versions. So are we going to see new amendments coming?
That is still happening, sir. As on today also, if a Kongsberg, any company DP system, anything, it happens without us knowing.
Yes.
They keep on updating the versions 1, 2, 3, 4. Any company, even as simple as alarm monitoring system. They keep on updating the software. After some time, the software doesn't support the hardware. You change the hardware and software both.
Captain Pata, I'm not very happy with the answers. Captain Lars and Captain Bhardwaj both alluded to this shore-based management skilling required. And I suppose the clubs are also thinking along these lines. My thoughts go to, the OCMF vetting inspection systems where the shore establishment is currently being, vetted by the system. So would that be a good model to go by in future? Or is it going to be completely new and focused on autonomous vessels?
I think it'll have to be revamped, sir.
Completely.
I think it'll have to be revamped because, like you said, they said, I mean, a DOC, would it be a DOC? The process would be completely different because the shore experience, the shore training, everything would need to be different. The emergencies are going to be, the procedures are going to be different. We may not even need seafarers, at that time, or to what level of seafarers, or who's the seafarer. We don't even know who's going to be a seafarer when it advances. So that would change the dynamics of it. So I think probably a fresh start for these kind of vessels, because if we keep bridging over here, I think then we'll end up, by the time you finish the bridge, and then the previous system has become obsolete, and then, then the bridge is dangling. So it may be wise to actually start something afresh over here and, work on it to see whether that person would be, whether they would be shore staff, or they be employees, it's a very kind of a liquid thing right now. That's the whole thing. I think the entire thing would need to change. The SMC would also change your safe manning certificate.
You mentioned there may not be seafarers. Pretty sobering sort of thought. It's a very serious seminar, so there's no scope for frivolous comments. But when you were saying that, a thought came to me that these autonomous ships are going to be able to solve a lot of our seafarers' problems. No shore leave problem, no piracy problems. Yeah? All these problems automatically get solved. No criminalization of seafarers, because all these problems will be sorted automatically.
So,
thanks to
slip of the tongue. What I mean is, seafarers would be a different defined category. I mean, they may not be the seafarers we know of today. They may be half land-based or fully land-based or kind of hybrid varieties, which is the word of the last few years. But what I mean is, seafarers will definitely be there, and I want to assure you that.
It's a frivolous statement, like I said. This is a very
Yes, I
serious
mean,
topic.
slip of the tongue probably. But seafarers will always be there.
So, can I ask a question?
Yeah, please.
Yeah. One question again. See, with the autonomous ships coming in, the liability regime for P&I is going to remain same, except that the seafarers are not on board. Now, if the ship is hitting somebody, breaking the jetty, everything is going to be there. Now, the seafarers will not be there. So, what is the percentage of claim, vis-a-vis total claim payment that you make, is towards the death and disability compensation, towards sickness of the crew, or repatriation of the crew? What is the percentage of the total claim payment that you
So
make?
you're so busy thinking to ask me difficult questions, you're not listening to what I was saying. Initially, I said about 20% of our claims are actually crew illness and injury claims. I'm only joking, sir. About 20% of the claims, and they total up to about close to $17 million per year. But this is illness as well as injury. And then again, we've not categorized which injury is purely on the human element or kind of other thing over there. So about that level. But definitely, I mean, if there are going to be lesser risks and lesser claims, it will be going down. But the other side of it is we are not sure on how that is going to, because we are all in a crystal ball stage right now. We don't know how that is going to transpire into how an ill-trained remote control person is going to go and T-bone a jetty kind of thing. I still have a lot of faith in our seafarers. I would still think an experienced master at the helm is the best. But again, like I said, we have to go with the times. But it could lead to an increase in claims on the other side, because I am telling you that there have been so many instances that seafarers on board, shipping is dynamic. I mean, with all the vibrations on board, weather, things, a lot of things beyond our control. The seafarers adapt and make it all kind of, they put balm in all the right places and it kind of works. But if the seafarers were not there, I'm sure at the current scenario, we would be seeing a lot more number of claims, as we are saying, because of our seafarers.
You mentioned moving the times, but actually Sudhir has reminded me that our 1.5 hour is just over. So in other words, we've done 90 minutes exactly, and any more will be encroaching on the next. Can we just leave that? Because I have a lot of questions more to ask, but I think we leave it to the last question that somebody raised. Yes, sir.
Thanks so much, sir. Captain Tusharia, question is for Mr. Srinivas, but taking forward what Captain Hari just mentioned about crystal ball gazing. So without going too far ahead where many more factors come in, my question is if he could just, tell us what he thinks in a short period of, say, just the next 5 years. Because he spoke about the 12-meter vessel and the 20-meter vessel that's already beginning trials and testing. So in the next 5 years, what does he see as the likely changes? Just expanding on that thought, whether it will be the offshore sector that tends to move towards this direction before the main fleet sets in, or do you see another way that we can start to see this effect in the next 5 years?
Okay, well, as we move forward in the next 5 years, while the work on the preliminary work in the domestic sectors goes around, with the advent of new technologies, remote operations or autonomous vessels, the skilling and development of systems, basically the comfort of autonomous ships comes only when the systems are rugged and proven. So we need to have ancillary equipment systems being developed so that these systems can be mass produced, and especially the software, there's the more crux of that. That has to be developed properly and certified. So that becomes one of the most important things. Then of course the training becomes very important, training part. And training also should be, because nowadays information overload is there. You go to Google, everywhere you get the information. We don't know what to know, ask ChatGPT, tells you where to look. But problem is, we should be knowing what should be, our knowledge, we can have a lot of knowledge, not an issue. But the role what I'm supposed to do, that should be clear, that much knowledge is very important. That's what they call it, qualification and the competency. The competency required to do a particular job is important, and that much should be known. Knowing extra is not a problem.
I think we'll have to close because we got given 90 minutes and now it's 93. So thank you everybody. Thank you a lot.
I think this is going to continue in the tea break later.
Yeah, hopefully.
Thank you, sir. Just formality, we have to have a flag to be given. Can I this time do a bit of a change, Kaustubh? Could I request our senior wardens, Captain Halbe, Captain Harjeet, and Captain Edley, sir, is here?
You're sitting there.
He is gone. Please come on the stage to give away the mementos. Captain Harjeet. Captain Dubey, sir. So the first, the memento is for Mr. Srinivas. Please. Thank you. Next memento is for Captain Subramaniam.
From my teacher.
From your teacher. ट्रे ले लो, ट्रे ले लो. Now give. I called him, but he didn't come. Can I request Captain Ajit and Captain Dubey to give the memento to Captain Kapil Dev Bahl, sir? बीच में आ जाइए प्लीज. Okay, now a photograph with a plaque. Thank you. A very quick, short tea break, please. Because Captain Pradhan has arranged a very good high tea afterwards. Captain Shan.
Yeah, thanks. If I can have just a moment of your attention, please. It's, a lot of great proceedings have taken place all through the day. The best one is yet to come. So get out there, get a strong shot of caffeine or nicotine or whatever that peps you up. Come back in 10 minutes, okay? Thank you.